What is going on, everybody? We are back for another episode of Triple OT. As always, with Amar Burton, Dylan Holloway. Gentlemen, how are you doing? It's been a little bit since we've all been together again. You know, I had unfortunately had to get a root canal done, some dental work, and then had some family issues with my wife's health. Luckily, she's doing a-okay as of right now. So had to miss some time, but I saw last week's episode. You guys absolutely killed it. For those of you who did watch, tune in last week, you know Dylan and Amar just totally got down. If you were a triple OG, you stayed until the end of the video and watched all of that amazing content. And if you are a triple OG, you will stay till the end of this video and watch all of this content, okay? Because we are going to get into a lot of NBA playoffs. But first, how you guys been doing? Dylan, how is it going, man? What's going on in your life? I know you got some pretty exciting things going on with an internship and everything. What's happening, buddy?
Yeah, so I'm done with all. I was talking about this last week. I had my last regular semester for all intents and purposes at Rutgers University. I'm fulfilling my last 6 credits with an internship with the Jersey Sporting News. So if you ever want to see my writings, I'm writing about everything Jersey sports related. I did the Rutgers football spring game, writing about Kyrie Irving on the Nets. You know, there's a few other players in the NBA playoffs who are connected to New Jersey and somehow either they played high school or they're from here, kind of thing. Like Kyle Anderson from the Grizz, the game's on right now. You know, if you want to see my takes on those, go ahead and go to jerseysportingnews.com. So trying to stay active on that. And other than that, just just trying to stay busy, trying to be more active, trying to go back to the gym now that it's normal, I guess, ish to go to a gym. You know, it's kind of weird going to the gym with a mask on. I'm vaccinated, but the rule is still like everybody's wearing a mask. I think they're going to kind of, in New Jersey at least, I don't know about where you guys live, they're kind of going to raise restrictions sometime in June as far as like indoor stuff like that. So it looks like
we're actually cutting back in Washington, man.
Looks like we're over the hill. So you guys are going opposite direction. So it looks like we're in New Jersey, at least we're over the hump. You know what I mean? So
that's what I meant. Good. Yeah. I'm saying we're cutting back on restrictions. I mean,
I thought you were saying like we're restricting more now. Yeah. Like
we're in lockdown, state's in lockdown again. So actually been in my house for 2 weeks.
No, so I mean that's good. You know, it's we're going around the bend kind of thing. So it's nice to get back to some kind of normalcy, as you guys know. And it's been beautiful lately here in New Brunswick, New Jersey. So the weather's awesome, you know, and I'm just enjoying life. What about you, Amar? What's going on, brother?
Packing, man. We're getting ready to move. About a couple weeks away.
Boxes.
You guys know where we're going, but I think I'll let everybody else know when we get there. But yeah, I mean, it's like the house is it's full of boxes. You know, we kind of did the thing where it's like we cut the wardrobe down to like just a few changes of clothes until we leave. So I feel like I've been wearing like the same stuff for the last few days. Like,
how many hats are you getting rid of, Amar? Are you keeping all the hats?
I'm keeping. Well, I got rid of a couple that had just kind of been like smashed and like misshapen. You know.
Isn't that always a sad moment?
You know, do you have any of those hat racks that you like put inside or whatever? They're like plastic.
I remember I had one of those when I had some of those when I was younger, but I don't have.
Is that still a thing? I remember it was pretty popular like late 90s, but do people still use those?
I remember having one. Do you remember the thing where I don't know where you could put your hat in it and you could put it in the dishwasher?
Oh yeah, I always thought that was weird. Like, how is that supposed to not destroy your hat?
I never tried it. I was too scared.
You know what? I think I did try it one time and it did. Like it ruined. It was usually when I wear, All right, disclaimer for everybody. We are recording this during the Memphis Grizzlies Utah Jazz game. So you're going to see a lot of cringes and maybe a possible few yells of exclamation here.
It was a blowout when right before we started. Now it's like a 2-point game.
2-point game. There's 3. Oh
that's why I keep looking over. I don't have a neck problem.
That's why I'm looking down. 96-91. 3 minutes left in the third. But anyways,
Amar, how many hats do you own, Amar?
It's over 30. I know that.
Holy cow.
I cut it down as far as like packing up. Like I packed all of them up except for like 4. So for the next couple of weeks, I only got 4. So I'm kind of like mixing and matching and just trying to find ones that work.
Just trying to make it work, man.
But yeah, trying to make it work. So yeah, we got that going on. We're getting ready to move. I recently just went back to the gym myself. I've been away for a good month just with everything going on. I went back yesterday. I'm not too sore, and I got this second shot in the arm earlier today.
Oh, today. That's right.
Yeah.
How you feeling?
Nice, congrats.
I don't feel any different. So I'll let y'all know if I start turning into a zombie during this podcast.
Well, your arm's really going to hurt the next couple days at the minimum.
Oh yeah, after I got the first one, it was like about 2-3 days where like you could definitely feel it. So
yeah,
but I haven't been feeling sick, so that's good. Yeah.
Well, as I'll give you, I don't know, you probably know this. You're a hat guy, but I was going to say the dishwasher thing, I don't think works. What does work for me and has worked in the past is if you get that like sneaker cleaner type stuff with like a little brush, you just use that like very sparingly. Yeah, that works really good. Unless your hat is completely like destroyed from sweat or something.
Do you remember who turns you on to that, Dylan?
I'm assuming it was you by the way you just asked.
Back when I worked at Foot Action, bud. Remember when you came and bought?
This dude's like Shaquille O'Neal over here. Like, you need some water, brother.
Well,
I don't remember that, but I believe you. Yes, that was
when you bought your Barclays, I think they were something like that from me, and you got a hat too. And I sold you some shoe cleaner and shoe protector, and told you to use it on your hat.
How do you have that memory? Like,
come on.
So what? Okay, so
I never forget when we're together.
So Foot Locker is like the ref uniform, right? What's the Foot Action?
No, Foot Locker is the ref uniform. Foot Action was just like a regular black polo.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, Foot Action was the urban store. Is the urban?
They should have just made you wear like full like Major League Baseball umpire gear,
right.
like a face mask and everything. Like, how can I help you today, sir?
Like, okay, were you guys like the NBA refs and you wore like the gray, like the little gray shirt or something?
Oh yeah, the gray ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
You work at a shoe store, you must dress like some kind of official.
Absolutely.
I think so. Yeah, that's why I like the umpire. I like the umpire idea. I don't know about you guys. I think that would work. So.
With the
I don't know.
pad and the like.
Yeah,
it'd be hard to pack down inventory.
Full gimmick, man.
All right, let's get into it. I'm so itching to talk NBA playoffs right now. What do you got for us, Dylan?
All right, so I'm gonna throw you guys some questions. I want to start it off with a pretty general one. Austin, I'll start with you since you're the one itching over here. Hopefully not too bad. Get that checked out, brother. But what do you think the best NBA playoff series has been thus far, in your opinion, in terms of like just enjoyment? Which one have you enjoyed the most that you think has been the best, Austin? So far,
it has got to be this Memphis Grizzly Utah Jazz series. Having the Grizzly come out and upset the Jazz. The first game, that was very cool to watch. This game the 2 has been very exciting. It got pretty boring there. They were down 15, then 20, then 18, and Ja Morant and this team, this Grizzly teams, has just fought and clawed their way back, which is very cool. But there's a little bit the reason why actually I was most excited about this series coming into this, especially after game 1. Was because there's a little underlying storyline on this in this with the Jazz, right? It's one that I told Amar earlier, you're probably going to look at me sideways. But this series, this playoff run for the Utah Jazz, maybe not this one in particular, but at least this one and next year's combined are going to have a lot of sway on the future of Donovan Mitchell with the Utah Jazz. What? Austin, are you kidding me? He just signed a 5-year, $195 million contract.
Are you interviewing yourself right now?
This is like the next level of talking.
I'm imitating those watching right now.
Oh, okay.
And here's why.
That's the fans at home. Okay.
Yeah. Let me straighten this up and let me tell you why. You may think that's crazy, but this stems all the way back to last year before the NBA got canceled for the season. A huge reason, or a lot of heat of that, came from Rudy Gobert touching the mics, not take it seriously. He tests positive. Donovan Mitchell tests positive. And there was a lot of rumors and speculation and confirmed sources that Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert had a very strained relationship. They were no longer friends. It eventually got to a point where it was like, okay, things are amicable. They can at least play together, win some games. And they had a great season this year, number one seed, first time or only third time in franchise history, first time since 97-98 season, right? However, that relationship isn't totally cemented. They are not friends anymore. At least I don't believe so. Leading into that, we watched, unfortunately, they lost Donovan Mitchell for a stretch here. Now, going into game one, Donovan Mitchell was ready to play. And from what I understand, he believed he was going to play. He even tweeted out, I'm ready. We're rocking and rolling. And that's what he was told. Come to find out, they end up holding him out of the game, benching him. And he was not happy about that. It upset him. It very much upset him.
Well, they held him out for medical reasons. It wasn't like a benching.
Of course. No. I understand that. I understand.
I get what you're saying, but just to be clear, it wasn't like you're benched.
Right.
It was like they said he wasn't.
In his mind, you benched me, right? But you're right. It was for medical reasons. But his mind, I was ready to go. I was ready to help my team. He watched his team get upset in game one. As you could see in game two here, the Utah Jazz had played with a whole different energy with Donovan Mitchell. He started incredibly hot. But my point being is that there are some cookie crumbs that if you follow stemming back from that Rudy Gobert incident and the season getting shut down and kind of the aftermath with the Utah Jazz locker room from that, follow those breadcrumbs, cookie crumbs, whatever you want to call them. And sorry, I was just thinking about the Family Guy. What's his name? James Wood. Ooh, piece of candy. Ooh, piece of candy. Follow that. Be James Woods from Family Guy, right? And you will find that, Mitchell just signed a huge contract, but in this era with player empowerment, that doesn't mean anything. So that's going to be just really interesting to watch this team through the playoffs and moving forward, how that plays out.
Well, Amar, what series do you have as your favorite, and which 12-year-old Family Guy reference are you going to lay on us that is not relevant whatsoever?
Before I get into that, so the Donovan Mitchell thing, I mean, I could see that. I think Austin's right. The fact that he signed an extension doesn't really mean much. I mean, we've seen, from Kawhi Leonard to Deshaun Watson to, I'm blanking on the other ones, but we've seen athletes who, signed an extension.
Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, Russell Westbrook from Oklahoma City.
For Oklahoma City.
Especially
in the NBA, it seems like you can be traded.
James Harden, when they want to go, they want to go. And, they can raise enough stink. And no GM or owner wants to be the one known for, well, we kept him around and he was just a sourpuss and he, ruined everything and the fans were booing and everything. So it's almost better for the team that if the guy's unhappy to just give him what he wants and trade him, right? So I could see that happening. Also, depending on where you're from, I don't think it takes much to want to leave Utah.
I got 6 months out of it, buddy, and I was gone.
And I mean, Donovan Mitchell, he's from New York. I could very much see him just being like, you know what? Don't really want to be here anymore. And there's not much keeping me here. So anyway, best series for me so far, probably Lakers Suns. I mean, tied at 1-1. Both games were going into the fourth quarter, still up in the air. You got some of the best players in the league in this series. You got LeBron, Anthony Davis, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, Chris Paul. Now you got the Chris Paul injury, so there's some intrigue there. It's just been all the games have been intense. You got, different storylines going with, Anthony Davis playing terrible in game one and bouncing back in a big way in game two. You got the whole, LeBron, Chris Paul friendship thing. You got, Devin Booker and Ayton kind of coming into their own in their first playoff series. Chris Paul's thing with, this career long, always coming up short. And, is this going to be the year? And he's got a 2-seeded team this year.
And he's hurt again.
Yeah.
So we're going to get into that. Yeah.
So to me, that's been the best series so far. I was looking for one in the East, and I mean, Milwaukee, Miami is interesting just because the development of continued development of Giannis and how that's going, and just the storyline of Miami knocking off Milwaukee last year and kind of the revenge angle for the Bucks. So, although Game 2 was a blowout, that series been one that I've got my eye on too.
I'd say my pick has got to be the New York Knicks and the Atlanta Hawks. Just because that one has just the most electric atmosphere there. Like, it really feels like the playoffs, and it really feels like New York sports are back. Like, just Trae Young is like, it's so many, like, you laid out the storylines for the Suns and Lakers. Like, this game is like building storylines before our eyes of Trae Young becoming like the modern day Reggie Miller almost,
right?
Shushing the crowd, and they're saying "F you, Trae," and he's saying "Bring it on." I'll see you back in the A. He said tonight after the Knicks tied the series. And the Knicks really had to fight back tonight to tie that series because the Hawks looked like they're about to take a 2-0 lead, hadn't taken it back to Atlanta, and the Knicks came back. Julius Randle, he hasn't been playing great. He played better tonight, but I think he was like 6 of 23 in the first game. You know what I mean? He kind of struggled there. So he's trying to find other ways. To be fair, though, they're double teaming him a lot. Like Nate McMillan is saying, we're not going to just let Julius Randle just beat us one-on-one. You know what I mean? So he's double teaming, and it worked in the first game. Second game, some other players on the Knicks stepped it up, though, and the Knicks took the 1-1 split back to Atlanta. It just feels really intense, though, and there's no better arena in sports than Madison Square Garden, in my opinion. You know what I mean?
Oh, I agree.
Just seeing all the fans, and it's just awesome to see. I feel like the Knicks are one of those teams in sports. It's kind of like the Oakland Raiders, the Los Angeles Lakers, New York Yankees. The sports are better when they're good. Mm-hmm. Whether you're rooting for them or you're rooting against them. You know what I mean? You want those teams to be good and relevant. So,
they create a lot of memorable moments, man. And like you said, not only is MSG the best place in terms of basketball in general. So when you have that place with just going off and the fans are screaming and yelling and the thunderous roar and to include that and have that in the limelight and in the prime time and especially in the playoffs, that's huge. It's only good for the league. It only makes for good basketball, good storylines, and pure entertainment to watch.
Yeah. I lived in New York mid 2000s, early 2010s, and got to, cover quite a few Knicks games. And yeah, you're right. And that wasn't even a good era for the Knicks. That was like the Isaiah Thomas, Stephon Marbury, Zach Randolph era where they weren't going to the playoffs. But there were times when, it was an event depending on what team was coming in. If Miami was coming in or the Lakers or, one of the stars was coming in, it was a big deal, because they were playing at MSG, right? And sometimes, if a game was close or, somebody was having a big performance, it felt like that, 90s playoff Knicks basketball. I was at the game where Jamal Crawford scored 50 something for New York. I think they were playing Miami. But yeah, it was with the Shaq D Wade Miami, I believe. Maybe, I don't remember. But anyway, that was I've never been in an NBA arena that was that loud. And then it got to the point where when Crawford was, getting into the 40s, every time he got the ball, everybody stood up. And it was I hadn't been in an arena where that happened before. It was just a crazy atmosphere. So yeah, them being good again, them being in the playoffs again, it is good for the NBA, and you want those games being showcased for the league.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of every time they have the ball, Trae Young, not only is he he's totally becoming the New York's next target as a villain, right? Every time he touched the ball, I watched the full game tonight. Every time he touched the ball tonight, it boos, right? First game, they started F you Trae chants. They didn't say F you though. They said something else that I'm not going to repeat. And I just want to get your guys' opinion on the stuff that's going on. It's I also saw stuff on the internet of Trae Young supposedly is afraid of birds. So they're trying to encourage fans to bring pictures of birds to the arena. And another thing, and I want to quote exactly who got this is let me jump on Insta here real quick. I saw this all over it's been all over different sports Instagrams, such as The Score. I saw Rich Eisen retweeted it, stuff like that. This guy, Dr. Kellen Scantleberry, His Instagram is Dr.Kels. He put this in his story, a flyer that fans at MSG were handing out. And it says, and I'm quoting it here, right here, the flyer. Tonight's chant is Trae is balding. And then it says below, at 22 years old, Trae's hair is thinning at an alarmingly fast pace, and he has a bald spot forming on the crown of his head. This will be a much more effective chant to take advantage of home court. They had a typo here. They put take twice. To take advantage of home court and throw Trae off his game. Now, those three things combined, especially with the flyer, do you guys, I'll start with you, Omar. Do you think that's taking it too far, or do you think this is like, yes, sports are back and New York is ruthless and this is awesome and I love it? Do you think this is like Reggie Miller versus Spike Lee, or do you think it's like, come on, like this is too much?
I don't think it's taking it too far because it's not like it's like a personal secret, right? I mean, was this like Trae Young's, hair doctor, and like like he's seeing balding that we don't see?
I honestly never even noticed because his hair's like curly or whatever and kind of long. Yeah. I didn't notice he was balding. I watched the game tonight. I'm sitting there staring at the TV like, I don't see it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like, I didn't.
What kind of detectives looked at this?
That's something that someone could pick up on who online and then spread through social media or whatever. It's not like they're sharing his medical records or something like that. I wonder if anyone's ever put out a flyer like that for LeBron, like, or we just know, like LeBron's hairline is going back.
Right.
We'll chant about it. Okay, everyone mobilized. Anyway,
Let's move as a team.
I don't think that's too far. I mean, whenever it's something that's public knowledge, and I guess the fear of birds is public knowledge, and his hair is public knowledge. As a superstar athlete, you just know people are gonna heckle you about that kind of stuff. So I don't think it's scaring him or it's really bothering him that much. And someone like him, I mean, he's just using that just to motivate himself.
Oh yeah.
And when they got these games in Atlanta coming up, but when they come back to New York, he's going to have something for him. And, he heard what they said, and yeah, it's cool. Like just having fans back in buildings anyway, after the last year is good. This isn't like awful. I mean, it's not classy, but it ain't awful.
Austin, what do you think?
I love it. I think it's awesome. I mean, sports are back. Fans are back. And not only that, but New York fans are back. And I got to say, as someone who doesn't take any enjoyment in giving props to ridiculously loud and obnoxious fan bases, I am so happy to see the Knicks good again. I am so happy to see stuff like this. It's fun. As someone who's on the outside, watching this on TV and whatever, it is such a blast. And that's part of the fun of being a fan. And I don't think it's too far. I think too far is if they're making personal attacks about his family, or like Amar said, private medical stuff or whatever the case. That would be one thing, or some of the things that other players have jumped into stands over, or whatever, like that stuff. I get that's pushing it, but this stuff, it's all in good fun. They're doing their best to throw a young star off of his game. He's doing his best to cement himself as a star in this league.
Even the mayor of New York City called him out, dude.
Right. Yes, I love
stuff, man. This is awesome.
It's great, and you're right. It's like back in the Reggie Miller, Spike Lee days. I mean, it is these rivalries, and this is the fun part of not just sports, but especially basketball. Because you can be so vocal. You're especially the guys, they're literally sitting behind the guys on the bench. You know what I mean? So there's a certain point of when it's fun, and we're having a ton of fun with this. It's so fun. It's great. It's cool. It's awesome. I hope it doesn't get pushed in, to a dangerous zone, because it's a blast to see right now. It makes every game that much more intimidating. I can't wait to see what Atlanta fans, you know what I mean? What do they try to come back?
They gotta have his back, right?
Yeah, that's their boys. They gotta have their boys back. And so what are they gonna come back with? How are they? I'm gonna be really disappointed if Atlanta fans don't just show up
He's not that bald.
Oh, Trey's got hair.
Trae's got hair.
Get rid of all bird pictures. The Atlanta Hawks. There's no Hawks allowed anywhere. Like, get rid of that.
I don't know if the bird thing is confirmed or not. It's just, to be honest, it's just a thing I saw on the internet.
Right.
So I don't know. I was like, it'd be pretty ironic though if you got drafted to the Hawks. If you actually terrified
like
bird.
the Knicks is like, there's not really. I mean, you get Julius Randle. There's not really like a standout, superstar on the Knicks or like a polarizing player. You know what I mean? Like,
right. Well, you've got like Julius Randle, kind of, who's like emerging, or
Derrick Rose, kind of
making that. And then I was going to say Derrick Rose as well, which
everyone likes.
He's always going to get that attention anywhere he goes.
Yeah, everyone likes Derrick Rose. Nobody like hates Derrick Rose. Like people don't complain about Derrick Rose and Trae Young. He's been getting complaints since he came into the league with his style of play. Like you said, the New York mayor was calling him out for hunting for fouls. Right. A lot of people don't like how he does that. It's kind of annoying to them. Like New York doesn't have that kind of player. So I was thinking like, well, who would Atlanta fans, kind of target? And I'm like, I don't know who that would be. Like there's not really anyone associated with the Knicks except for James Dolan that like Atlanta fans could really.
Yeah, but like Knicks fans would jump in on that chant. They'd
like, you're right, he is awful.
Knicks fans would be like, we know.
So I just ruined any chance of me ever getting a press pass to Madison Square Garden because James Dolan is going to see this episode and ban me for life. You laugh, but if you actually saw it, I'm sure that would happen. So, but anyways, I tend to really like this. The bird thing, I was kind of back and forth on. I was like, man, like bringing someone's actual fears into a game, but it's kind of cool. The balding thing, I thought it was so ridiculous that it made me laugh, especially that they had flyers. It wasn't like they did a Reddit tweet or something. Like they actually passed out flyers at Madison Square Garden. You know what I mean?
Now, Trae Young, he plays for the Atlanta Hawks, so isn't there every home game a big-ass bird mascot running around the arena?
I don't know.
Did that bother him?
Is there a bird in the arena?
No, not an actual bird, like their mascot. Like
the dude. I thought you meant like a Seahawks.
Yeah, isn't it like a red bird, like a red hawk or whatever?
He dressed like a bird running around.
He like told. He's like just make that thing stay away from me.
Yeah,
right.
There's like a 200-yard rule. Like he's got a restraining order against it.
I'm thinking, okay, they're the Hawks. Like whenever they hit a three or a free throw or something, like is there a little bird sound effect? On the scoreboard. So I just if this is true that Trae Young is scared of birds, is every home game for him just like a terrible experience?
It's probably one of those things where like, cause it's not a real bird, he's like, okay, whatever. I'm sure it's real birds if it's anything.
Right.
Because he's not the only, I've met people who are afraid of birds.
I mean, let me find out.
It's not like a weird thing.
Trae Young better home situation, he'd be averaging like 35 a game. Like, like
are you saying birds at the arena are holding him back?
Yeah, I'm saying he's doing what he's doing with, surrounded by the thing that he fears, right? So if
this is a real like Skip Bayless narrative you're coming up with, right?
if he goes to another team, he's like his game goes to a whole other level and he's just going
to
go free now. I'm not playing, like I'm not scared. I'm not looking over my shoulder, every time out. So this is something. Keep an eye on.
Looking over my shoulder.
I'm not scared to look down at my jersey. I'm not,
like he's just like
Trae Young's going to demand a trade from Atlanta because he can't deal with the birds.
Well, I this whole back and forth between the Hawks and
the next 12-year-old Family Guy reference is that soon Trae Young will have to fight a bird like Peter fought the chicken.
Okay,
to get over his. No,
so cool.
No, we're done with the Family Guy. The whole Knicks versus Hawks thing has really reminded me of like a college basketball type atmosphere because this kind of thing happens in college all the time. I don't know if it flies a little more under the radar. But remember when JJ Redick was at Duke and fans were bringing signs to the game talking about his back knee?
Yeah,
right.
That was brutal, man. That's
pretty tough.
That's just as bad as the balding thing, isn't it? Like,
right.
Yeah, it's kind of like a pro wrestling crowd.
Yeah, I could see that. A little maybe have somebody make a run in. So
I love it that because most of that is like. You can't say that fans as a whole don't hold some influence over the outcome of a game, right? I mean, the Seahawks, they're a perfect example of that against the Giants. So you can't tell me that there isn't some like weight that's carried behind stuff like that. So like,
now Austin's making
it,
references from games from 2005, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm just saying,
the 11 false
I think
starts.
it's
I know
awesome
what you're
to
talking
see.
about. No one else knows what you're talking about, dude.
That's okay. My point is that it's cool to see fans being able to be creative and utilize what little influence they have over the game to the best of their ability. They're trying to be the best player that they possibly can be on the court.
Y'all remember that game in 1982 in the preseason?
He works in a Seahawks reference every episode.
I had to find a way, even in a NBA playoff special episode.
Moving on, something that I think you guys will agree that is too far happened tonight between the Wizards and the 76ers. Russell Westbrook hurt his ankle. I want to start with you on this one, Amar. Westbrook hurt his ankle as he was going back to the locker room. A fan above him, you know how they have like the tunnel and then like the seat above? He dumped a bunch of popcorn on his head. Westbrook obviously was upset. Security had to kind of like restrain him a little bit, cool him off kind of thing. Afterwards, he was talking to reporters about how angry he was. You know, somebody wouldn't do this to me on the streets, obviously. You know, people who talk about my family, it's too far. And he said he thinks the NBA needs to protect the players more. Amar, I just want to get your response to this situation.
You know, we just talked about how it's good to have New York fans back, but we also have Philly fans back. And that is not necessarily a good thing because, you know, as soon as it's like we let you back in the building and you start acting like Philly fans. Like, why can't you have nice things, right?
This is why nobody invites you to these things, okay?
Exactly. Like 2 games into the playoffs and you're already like showing your ass and being the stereotypical jerk Philadelphia fans.
It's like the uncle who shotguns 3 beers before dinner, you know? Like, come on, man. Can you just slow down? Because we already know how this is going to end, and it's going to be an absolute disaster.
Yeah, like, that's not in any way, shape, or form cool. You know, I'm assuming that they've been able to identify the fan, or I hope that they're able to identify the fan and, you know, ban them from the arena, all that kind of stuff. It's, you know,
do you think legal action should be taken? Or do you think just a ban from games for life is enough?
I don't know, like maybe some kind of misdemeanor. I don't like what. I mean, it feels weird to say like assault because like you poured popcorn on somebody, but it's some. I don't know. I'm not sure like legally if something should happen. Definitely though, like, you know, banned from the arena, which I always wonder like how do those things work? Like I feel like there's loopholes where some guy could get around it. Like if you really wanted to go to a game, you could have someone else buy your ticket. And
right. I don't remember ever going to like a Spurs game or something and they're like, all right, let me see your face. You know,
right. Yeah. And like, you know, do they memorize like, you know, all these 20,000 people that are coming in? Are they going to be like, wait, no, that guy, like, no, he's not allowed in
here.
See,
and that right there is exactly why legal action should be taken, to be perfectly honest, to some degree.
Tell us about it, Austin.
Whether it is just a misdemeanor, a fine, whatever, like that is in totality, complete and utter bullcrap. Like the fact that anybody would do that, you know, these guys go out there regardless of the sport and they put their bodies on the line. You know, they work their butts off, and yes, they're compensated handsomely for it, but they do it for the entertainment of the masses, right? And we all love to have fun with it. You know, and they do too. They love to joke around with the fans or have the little rivalries, whatever. But when you start doing stuff and you start assaulting, which that's exactly what it is. It's no different than if you spit on someone. That's an assault charge as well, right?
Especially in the COVID era right now.
Right.
Everything, you know.
Exactly. So you're throwing food, right, in a violent manner at a guy who just hurts himself, you don't know what that injury could have entailed. What about Navarro Bowman? Here's another Seahawks reference for you. Navarro Bowman, when he just his knee just goes completely just sideways out of its socket, and then as he's getting taken into the tunnel, somebody dumps popcorn on him. I mean, and guess what? That he was never the same again. He was never the same player. You know what I mean? So like, you don't know what kind of injury that is. That could have been a career-ending injury, And so to treat somebody like that because you dislike them because they don't play for your favorite basketball team. Because let's be honest, if that guy was wearing a different jersey, if he was wearing a Phillies jersey, he would love him. It'd be his favorite player. You know what I mean? But here it is. This fan is throwing popcorn. He needs a lifetime ban from the stadium. They need to plaster his picture up everywhere each game that he's never allowed in the building, right? And they need to bring up charges of some form of misdemeanor assault, something like that. Or if I was Westbrook, I'd go after him and try to go after him legally. I'd sue him for whatever I possibly could at that point, because that's so not okay, and it ruins the experience for everybody else.
Yeah, I agree with you guys, and this is like a no-brainer to me. It's like, you shouldn't be able to do stuff like that. And I remember the Navarro Bowman thing and thinking the same thing, even as a Seahawks fan. It's like, dude, like, don't be a jerk. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Boo, like some of the Trae Young stuff, that's cool or whatever. Like, just don't take it too far. Like actually throwing something at somebody and, like you said, spitting at people, like that's too much, I think. And it's like,
right.
And I was looking at because I like to annoy myself. I was looking through the comments on social media at the different people who posted this thing about the popcorn, and I saw exactly what I knew I was going to see, is like people saying, well, he gets paid so much money, why is he complaining about popcorn? Like, I don't understand why the amount of money he makes matters. Like, you threw popcorn at another man's head at his job right after he got injured. Like, and people were saying like, oh, Westbrook's being too dramatic, or he's freaking out for no reason. It's like, I would be freaking out too, man. He's like, people don't understand when you're in the playoffs. Like, people have probably been in like competitive situations, but not to the point of professional basketball of like the playoffs. You're about to go down 0-2 probably. You know what I mean?
Millions of people watching you.
He's probably mad that they're losing. He gets hurt, so now he can't even help his team. So he's frustrated. Yeah, millions of people watching him. And Russell Westbrook is like, he's not some guy on the bench that we don't know about. Like, he's one of the most like lightning rod players out there, right? You either love him or like you can't stand him kind of thing. Like, everybody's got an opinion on Russell Westbrook. And like, we kind of were talking about him before, like, is he the second greatest point guard ever? Like, like having fun with it. But like, this is just too much. This is too far, like dumping popcorn on a man's head like that. And then people like defending it online. It just blows my mind. Like, oh, what's the big deal? If I was getting paid that much, I wouldn't care if people. Yeah, I don't think so, buddy.
But you would, because
you would absolutely.
It doesn't matter how many zeros are on that man's paycheck. It doesn't matter what the hell his job is. At the end of the day, he takes that damn jersey off. He's a regular human being. He goes home, he kisses his wife, he hugs his children, and then he wakes up and goes back to work. And that's ridiculous for anybody to defend those kind of actions because he makes X amount of dollars or because of what he does for his job or whatever. Like, just because somebody is a celebrity doesn't give you the right. Right. And I'm one of the first people to say, like, celebrities of any kind, whether it be professional sports, movies, televisions, whatever, like, you understand what you're getting into. You understand the type of privacy and everything that you give up with that. But just because you are a celebrity, because you're a professional basketball player, whatever, it does not mean that you have to allow yourself to be degraded and talked down to and have popcorn thrown at you and have people say the things that, because this isn't the first time Westbrook's gotten into it with fans over people yelling racial slurs at him, whatever. People just don't like it because he's a player that's not just going to brush it off and go back out there and play. He's a guy that's going to stand his ground and say, no. You can't just talk to me like that because you paid $5,000 for your seat. You don't just get to treat me that way. And it blows me away that anybody would defend that.
who are defending that. I'm going to take a wild guess at what some of their political leanings might be. So I'd pose a hypothetical to them. If our former U.S. president had just finished doing his job, giving a speech or, whatever, walks out and someone throws popcorn on him, are you going to say, oh, well, he's rich, he should just deal with that? Oh, well, he's a celebrity, he's a president, he just don't. You probably want that person shot, right? So, like, you'll miss me with the, he makes a lot of money and he's famous, and so that's just part of the territory. No, it's not part of the
Remember when somebody reached for Donald Trump's leg on stage and people immediately demanded that he be sent up for execution?
Yeah, like
during his first when he was running for president the first time, and he kick back at him, and dude, people freaked out, called for the guy to be publicly hung. Yeah, how crazy is that?
About those people don't apply those same standards to everyone, but if it's a pro athlete, if it's somebody who they don't have respect for, and who they don't see is like on their level, who they think should just be able just to take the shots and deal with it, then they're going to say stuff like that. If it's someone that they do respect, is someone that they have like some level of, love for or care for, then that wouldn't be acceptable to them. So apply the rules to everybody.
That's crazy.
I agree. Definitely. And you're right on the money on most of the people commenting on this stuff are probably people who don't even like the NBA in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Right. Don't even watch it.
You're like, oh, they're all overpaid kind of thing. There's so many people who that's one thing that always kind of drove me nuts about pro sports is people worrying about it's one thing to be like, wow, can you believe what that guy got on that deal? That's cool. But people who are like, oh, they're all overpaid. And why don't they give that money to so-and-so and insert whatever job or career here? You know what I mean? And it's why are you worried about you don't even watch sports?
Because you don't understand it's an entertainment industry. And
are you going to Guardians of the Galaxy?
Their job to society.
Are you going to Guardians of the Galaxy and freaking out at how much Dave Bautista's making? Are you like, oh my goodness, 23 million? He's only got 35 lines. He's way overpaid. Let's give this money to the military instead.
But that's what's funny too, that argument of that money should go to police, first responders or military or whatever. But those are the same people that also are in love with capitalism. Not that I hate it, because I think it's great. I'm all for it. And but wouldn't that be a socialist kind of thought process? Because these are private businesses, private companies, right? Mm-hmm. So just because they're worth billions doesn't mean that their profits shouldn't be. And keep that in mind. These players make hundreds of millions of dollars. They're paid freaking pennies to what these owners make off of these franchises, right? So keep that in mind also. But my point being is so what now all of a sudden these private businesses who are profiting from entertainment of millions of people should have to be forced to pay out to government entity? Explain how it makes sense.
It's not like the Arizona Cardinals are run by the government.
That's what I'm saying. It's not like Arizona as a state.
It's your tax dollars at work. The Arizona Cardinals 2021 football team.
Right.
It's not a thing. Anyways, we're getting a little off track here, but I love the dialogue here. Let's keep moving it though. Let's talk about a team that a lot of people thought was destined for greatness, destined for the NBA championship, was going to walk right to the NBA championship, right? With Kawhi Leonard, with Paul George. Let's talk about the LA Clippers. And Austin, I want to start with you. What is going on with the LA Clippers? They're down 0-2 to the Mavericks, and they do not look like a championship team at all. What's going on? Are they in trouble, and how much? And what's going to be the aftermath?
They are in trouble. And this is the exact result of poor leadership, right? Of allowing your players, your star players, the both of them, to come and go as they please, to load manage as they please. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not even necessarily against load management, right? I think just like flopping and a lot of other things that happen within the league that are big debates, I think that they're strategic tools that can be used to win a championship, which is ultimately what everybody's trying to do. However, when you're put in a position where the guy who's supposed to be the face of your team, the franchise leader, and his buddy, who's supposed to be that same thing, right? when it's literally coming out that like they're setting their own schedule of when they want to play games and when they don't, when they want to practice, when they don't, when they want to travel, when they don't. And I guarantee you that didn't change this year, right? It's not like that was all of a sudden different. We still watched Kawhi take games off, right? We still watched as Paul George kind of struggled, then got on streaks, took games off, struggled, kind of got on streaks. He did the same thing. He got on a nice hot run into the playoffs. Everybody thought all of a sudden playoff P wasn't a thing anymore. And now we see the Clippers are down 0-2. And I don't even think it's necessary. Maybe the franchise is cursed. I don't even necessarily believe in that stuff, but it could be because at this point, this team has had talent. They've had Hall of Fame talent before. Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George are just some superstar names that have come through this franchise within the last decade or so, and they cannot do anything. This time, I solely blame it on the decisions of that organization. You can't take a guy who never had to worry about finals. What's that?
Haven't made a Western Conference Finals.
No, and you can't take a guy like Kawhi won championships on teams where he didn't have to do anything other than just play basketball when he wanted to, how he wanted to, especially in Toronto, because Kyle Lowry was the leader of that franchise. He was the guy, right? And then over in San Antonio, he had Pop and Duncan and Parker for a little bit and whatever. And he was never supposed to like push to be that guy. And now you've got a team that has no leader because he's not interested in being that guy. He's interested in playing when he wants to. So there is literally no, and Paul George is no different. He had the same problems in Indiana. Like when he played with the Pacers, they constantly choked because he's not a franchise leader. He's not a LeBron James. He's not a Kevin Durant. He's not a Steph Curry. And I say that, like, even putting Kevin Durant in that category blows my mind. But my point is like, this is not a guy that can lead and be vocal and push people to be better. They're both just really good basketball players that need to go on to teams that are like one piece away. Like, hey, I just need a guy that can score a bunch and play good basketball and not have to worry about anything else. And then they can be on championship contending teams. But this Clippers team will never see a championship with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard at the helm ever.
Are you giving
what coach, whatever.
Are you giving it the Charles Barkley guarantee right now?
Yep, absolutely.
Guarantee. Amar, what do you think about the Clippers?
I think I would love to talk to Doc Rivers right now because everyone blamed him when the Clippers wouldn't do nothing. And, you know, he's gone. He's in Philly. Can't blame him anymore. And look what's happening. He's probably watching this series like laughing. But
I'm going to die if they fire their coach after this.
But no team changes?
No other team changes. Just clean house in the coaching staff.
It was supposed to be better this year, man. Like, you know, okay, you could try to blame it on, you know, the bubble was just weird. And so that was just, you know, some people want to put an asterisk on that postseason and maybe give the Clippers a pass there, right? You know, it was just, you know, not a normal postseason. Okay, weird stuff happened. They're somewhat back to normal this year. They got Rondo. He was supposed to be this big difference maker, guy that comes through in the clutch, right? Got a different coach. Got rid of Doc Rivers, who was supposed to be possibly the
playoff Rondo. Yeah.
And you know, they're still in this series. I mean, it's not, they're not down.
Key ingredient missing to playoff Rondo. What is that, boys? What's the key ingredient missing to playoff Rondo?
The key ingredient, what do you mean?
The one key ingredient that's missing to playoff Rondo is leadership. Anytime we've seen Rondo at his best in the playoffs was when? Last year against the Lakers when LeBron James and Anthony Davis led that team. With LeBron James, one of the greatest leaders of all time in the history of the NBA. When he was in Boston, you had the likes of Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, and Ray Allen. Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett really being the biggest vocal leaders of that team. So again, just another guy that for the most part, you could slide in just like he did in LA, play really, really good basketball when it mattered the most, and not have to do anything else. And then all of a sudden, when he was brought into LA with the Clippers, all of a sudden the talk was, well, now they got this veteran leader. Playoff Rondo is really going to turn the tide for the Clippers. He's a vet. He's going to lead this team. Look at any team that Rondo has ever been on where he's been required to be a leader, and it's ended in just absolute disaster. Just
Yeah,
total
him on the
chaos.
Mavericks didn't go so well.
Yes, locker room
I
split,
will say,
total
though,
toxicity, and they booted him as quick as they got it.
but
What's that, Amar?
when he was in New Orleans, they had that 1 year they knocked off I think Portland in the first round, and it was like
Right.
Anthony Davis, Drew Holiday, and him. And yeah, same thing. I mean, yeah, he wasn't like considered.
Wasn't
the
Davis
best
even
player
hurt
off
during
the
that series? Wasn't
Was
Davis even
I
hurt
think he
during that
played the
series?
whole thing because they swept them, didn't they?
I thought that's when
yeah, I think
Davis
they
was
swept us.
hurt. I thought that's when Davis was hurt. We'll have the producers look that up later.
No,
We'll add
Davis
it-
played. I remember that
We'll
was
add it in post.
that
Real
was
quick-
that was Davis's first playoff series win.
Yeah, I remember that.
Sorry to interrupt you. What were you saying, Amar?
But yeah, like I'm starting to wonder with Kawhi Leonard. I mean, great as he is, talented as he is, like this is the first time that he came in as the leader of the favorite, right? In that front running position. When he won in San Antonio, he came up as a role player, right? When he won Finals MVP, he was, considered maybe the fourth best guy on the team. It wasn't his team. It was Tim Duncan's team. It was the big three. He was the other guy. He just had to come in, play his role. He played it really well, helped him win, got Finals MVP. He went to Toronto. Nobody thought that Toronto team was going to win a championship. I remember everyone kind of wrote them off. They were like, oh, they sent Kawhi to like this, NBA purgatory, and he's gonna hate it. He's gonna sulk. It was. I remember when he got traded to Toronto.
Take that, Kawhi.
Right.
Well, it was almost like
Spurs fans were salty, man.
When he got sent to Toronto. I remember it was almost kind of like, oh man, like the Spurs are just messing with him, because he wanted to go to LA was the report, and they sent him as far away from LA as you can get NBA wise. And so, no one thought that team was going to win. So he was in like this underdog situation, leads Toronto to a championship. He goes to the Clippers. They're a title favorite. He's the man on the title favorite. He's the guy kind of calling the shots as far as the same things that people say about LeBron, like, oh, he built the roster. He, handpicked his guys that he wanted. And now he's in that front running position. And I mean,
him going to the Clippers was contingent on them getting Paul George.
Yeah, like
and that's like 100% verified truth.
Yeah. This is his show, and they were favored to win a title last year. Came in again this year as like one of the popular picks to win it all. And like Austin said, it's been a disaster. Like it's not working. And so I'm like, does he need to go back to a situation where he can just play basketball and just be a guy, not the guy on the favored team? You know what I mean? Does he need to have some kind of underdog situation going on for him to be the best Kawhi Leonard he can be? So
you remember
Paul George right along with him. I mean, I think he needs a strong leader to kind of, I don't like using the word carry, but he's a strong leader to kind of, help him along and, maximize his potential. And Kawhi Leonard just might not be that type of leader.
No, not at all.
Y'all remember when they were saying Kawhi Leonard was like the new Michael Jordan?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They're like, I can't remember who first coined that. It might have been Doc Rivers. Someone compared him, said like he's the most like Michael Jordan I think that exists right now.
I think it was Doc. But I just remember everybody was so quick. And all of a sudden denounce LeBron James and Kawhi is the next leader of the NBA.
And like, to be fair, I think a lot of that had to do with maybe Kawhi's playing style, because playing style, he has a lot in common with MJ as far as like mid-range game, and his mid-range game when he was on the Raptors was like money. He was killing it with the
mid-range defense, just how strong he is. Like,
and it wasn't, and it's not like he's playing like complete garbage, and that's why the Clippers are losing.
Yeah,
the team is just not.
The other day, right?
Yeah, it's just the team is not winning though, and like a lot of it has to do with like the Clippers like defensive strategy. Like they're putting Pat Beverly on Luka. You know what I mean? And Luka is literally driving to the cup and screaming too effing small after he lays it up right over him every single time. And it's like Coach Ty Lue, it's like you got to be seeing this on film going, well, that's not working. We need to change this up. And then in the second game, it's like Luka has like no respect for this team. He just runs, shoots a three from deep off 1 foot right over Pat Beverly, like just hop, skip, and it was like Charles Barkley said, this isn't a shot you do in the playoffs. This is a shot you do in horse. thinking it
Right.
might go in and it might not go in. He
Right.
just like boom in your face. You know what I mean? He has no respect for this defense. And I don't mean that like no respect personally. I mean that like no respect of like these guys can't guard me. Right. Lucas, like these guys can't guard me, especially if you're going to put Pat Beverly on me every play. Like, come on.
And that's another question for you is like, what's Ty Lue doing? Right? Like, if you remember correctly,
updating his resume right now.
Right. Well, I mean, hey, he does have a huge opportunity to lose his job right now, honestly, especially with the way like what he's doing in these playoffs is not good. It's not even not working, it's just not good. And like any casual fan can see that, right? Like when they're making memes and stuff about it, you know that it's gotten really, really bad. And so like I just remember a lot of people kind of, you know, this was kind of his chance to step out of like that LeBron James shadow. And a lot of people don't respect the championship ring that he has because it was a LeBron James led team and he didn't really coach or, you know what I mean?
Understand
whatever.
That kind of take. Like I know it's off topic, but I think it's dumb. Like just because LeBron's on the team, like means he just like had his feet up and was eating Cheetos the whole time.
Pretty much.
Like,
that's what they. Yeah, that's what they assume.
Because that's what people. If you are the GM or the coach of a LeBron team,
you have the easiest job in the world.
People think LeBron's doing all the work, right?
Like you get paid millions of dollars to let your star player run your team.
You know, he's signing, he's doing all the recruiting and he's doing all the coaching. So yeah,
he's on the phone like trying to like get players to sign, like he's an agent.
Which
is funny.
I told people, the people that have this mindset that LeBron is like the, you know, GM, coach, owner, you know, all that. I'm like, then LeBron's like the best GM of all time because he's doing this job part-time and he's built 4 championship teams while being like while holding down 3 jobs at the same time.
Built and coached.
Yeah,
right?
Out all these like full-time GMs. So that's a dumb take. Yeah, like
it's silly. And I remember the thing I can most compare it to is I remember they used to say this about Peyton Manning.
Yeah,
they're like, oh, Peyton Manning, like there's no real coach on that team. It's like Tony Dungy was a great coach.
He calls all the plays,
even before he got to the Colts. You know what I mean? And Manning doesn't even call all the plays. He does a lot of audibles, but they had a great offensive coordinator in Indy. You know what I mean? Like, a
lot of that is like those audibles are like Manning didn't just like scratch him into the dirt. You know what I mean? Like those are actual audibles that they worked on during the week, that they watched film on, that they plays that the offensive coordinator created.
He's like, I got an idea. What if y'all ran a double poster just in the middle of the game? What?
Yeah.
Hey, Reggie, try this one on for size. Why don't you? Like,
pull the Sharpie out, writing it on his hand. All right. So,
hey Marvin, how's this grab you, kid? What do you think about this one? Like, it's just it's stupid.
That's
like,
even
it makes no sense.
It's even a worse take in football because it's like, you know, like football teams have like a million coaches for a reason, right? Like Peyton Manning's not going around the practice like, okay, I'm gonna work with the offensive line today. Like I'm gonna like teach you guys how to, you know, like teach you guys how to block. And I'm gonna go through all your your O-line audibles, and like then the next day he's over with the linebackers, and he's over with the receivers,
coaching up the practice squad.
Getting in players' faces. Anyways, it's silly, and it's weird because it's not like every successful player gets that like comparison. It's like that's the TV. It's not police lights behind me, by the way. It's like flickering really bad. And just a quick update: the Jazz were successful over the Memphis Grizzlies as of this recording, 141-129. So
good game.
Yeah, so the series is tied 1-1, but the Grizzlies did their job. The Grizzlies did their job, man. They split the series. People thought they should.
Game 1 upset was exactly what they needed to do, and even this game, they hung with them tough, man. There was a couple times where they let it get out of control, and I think that's really what ended up biting them in the butt. But I think they're going to come up with a little bit of a better game plan for Donovan Mitchell come game 3. And the Grizz are not going away easily. I think this is going to be probably a 6 or 7 game series here in the first round.
Do y'all think that the 2-game stretch for Ja Morant of taking down Golden State in the play-in and then winning that game 1 upset over Utah, was that 2 games alone enough to like certify him as like he's a star? Like he's Is that
I think
like,
it puts him well on the path. You know
I
what
think
I
he's on the
mean?
path, but if you watch the games, it wasn't just like Ja Morant versus the world kind of thing. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, oh man, Ja Morant just went like he scored well and everything, but it wasn't like just him going nuts. Like the team plays really well as a team, and he's the point guard. He's the leader of the team, so he's.
I think he does a good job orchestrating that offense for sure.
Yeah, but it wasn't just like Ja Morant dropped 60 or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, was it Jamal Murray? Like, he was just dropping 50 every game. It seemed like last year's playoffs,
right? Just to keep him in the hunt there. Yeah,
I don't think it's quite that far yet, but I think he's well on his way. You know what I mean? So, anyways, let's keep it moving here. Let's talk about Amar's favorite series. Let's talk about the Phoenix Suns and the Los Angeles Lakers, tied at 1 apiece as of this recording. Chris Paul, obviously not 100%. His shoulder is hurt. He was really limited in not just like his play on the court, but even the minutes he was given. And I just want to know, are the Suns, the series is tied 1 apiece, and against the LeBron James team, it feels like, oh, I'd take that. You know what I mean? Like, oh, we got a chance. Like, but it doesn't feel like the Suns, to me, really are in a good spot. Like, watching the end of the last game, it just felt like they're kind of looking around amongst themselves, like, all right, now what do we do? Kind of thing. You know what I mean? Offensively, at least. Austin, are the Suns in trouble?
absolutely. Oh yeah. I mean, they were overwhelming underdogs coming into this. They were able to, they had the dramatic. It's kind of funny because they had this big dramatic victory in game 1. You know, Chris Paul goes down, and then we kind of joked about it in our chat. You know, like the Titantron music comes on, and Paul just comes running back. My God, it's Chris Paul. He's back in it. My God. And it just kind of cracked me up because they came back, you know.
Chris Paul. And just stomping a mud hole in LeBron in the corner.
Right. And so what's kind of funny is like when you take off those rose-colored glasses and look at it, LeBron James always, like 60% of the time, loses game 1s. I mean, that's just what he does, you know, and he has never in his 14-year career of being in the playoffs, never gone down 0-2 in the first round of the playoffs. So I knew for sure that wasn't going to happen, right? Same with Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis has never in his playoff career followed up a game where he shot less than 50% and didn't come back and score huge. He averages 32 points a game in those games.
These are like some ESPN stats Austin is throwing at us right now.
I'm
like Bill Parcells is undefeated on Monday Night Football following a loss where he lost by like 10 points or less.
These are big stat lines. So my point being is that, as always, then we fall right back into the same story of Chris Paul's hurt and his minutes are limited, and then he probably won't even play next game and whatever.
I think he won't play at all?
I don't know, man. With his limited minutes as they were giving him in the last game, and he like was non-existent in the fourth quarter when it's not like it was a 30-point blowout. You know, I mean, they had a shot at the end there. You know, they lost by 8 points or whatever, so they had ample opportunity, and you hardly saw Chris Paul.
Yeah, right? But I think part of that is Cameron Payne was playing really well too.
He was
right. So maybe that was part of it.
Do you want to hurt Chris Paul or a hot Cameron Payne? I get that, but I just think that either this injury is a bit more than what's being originally led on. I don't know. There's something there though. Ultimately, I don't see any way that they go back to LA and don't get swept in those 2 games and then knocked out in a gentleman's sweep. First game back to Phoenix.
Oh, gentleman's sweep. Are you giving this the Charles Barkley, Austin Snyder guarantee right now? We are going to get sued by Inside the NBA. Amar, go. What do you got, buddy?
As long as I get to meet them at the courthouse.
The courthouse?
Yeah. They can sue us as long as Charles Barkley, Shaquille O'Neal.
Mr. Barkley, is it okay if I get your autograph as you're being sued?
Yes, absolutely. I'm okay with that.
Amar, what do you got, dude?
The Suns they're not done. You know, I mean, I think that the momentum's definitely in LA's favor. They're going to be favored in the next 2 games. I wouldn't be surprised if they win both those games. I also wouldn't be surprised if they split. Like, they are perpetually vulnerable. Just the way they like rely on threes and they don't have the most consistent 3-point shooters. Anthony Davis, as we saw in game 1, prone to have, those games where he just isn't there. He just disappears, for long stretches. LeBron, he gets too passive sometimes, and everyone's just like, why doesn't he just take the ball to the hole and take over? Like, that's just not how he is, right? So it's like, it seems like every LA game is close. They always come down there. It's like they're always down big in the first half. They always, in the fourth quarter, they got some catching up to do, or they have to hold off a challenge. So I think that they don't just come out and blow teams out like Brooklyn does, right? So because of that, I think Phoenix still has a shot because they have Devin Booker who can go off, because they have DeAndre Ayton who can, kind of man up with Anthony Davis and give him problems. Because
he's been playing well. He's been playing really well.
Yeah, because Cameron Payne's playing well, because they have Jay Crowder, and they're not scared of LA. So I think they have a shot. Would I pick them to win the series at this point? No.
Okay, so what do you? Austin says, "Gentlemen sweep." Go ahead and put your hat on the table there, if you will. What do you got?
I would say the Lakers in 6.
Okay. If you are Coach Monty Williams, what is your move now? Like Chris Paul, let's assume Chris Paul's, I don't know, based on what we've seen, 60%, 65%. Because, in the first game, he was really having trouble dribbling. Second game, he looked a little better dribbling wise, but you can tell it's still bothering him. He's not.
Oh yeah, he was slowed down big time. He was really, really hesitant going to the rack, and
stuff like that.
There was a lot of times where you'd see that signature patented teardrop that he wouldn't do it. He'd either pass out or he'd stop to take the jump shot instead or whatever. So I think 60-70% is probably where he's at.
So, Amar, what would you do if you're Coach Williams? Do you start Chris Paul if he's 65 to 70%, or are you like, no, we got to go with Payne starting at point guard? What would you do?
If Chris Paul can play, I'm starting Chris Paul.
Even if he's 50%, you're starting Chris Paul. If
he can play and he feels like he can contribute something.
Define play though, or is he playing like he's being effective, or is he is he just out there?
I'm starting him, and if he can be productive, I'm playing him in the fourth quarter. Remember the famous Willis Reed game, right? He didn't play the whole game and dominate. He came in, he gave him that inspirational moment. He hit 2 shots and he left. And he didn't he played a few minutes, right? And he didn't have some dominant stat line or anything. Sometimes it's just enough for him to be there and to be that presence and just show the team that hey, I'm still here. I'm still with you guys. I'm not going away. They might need that inspirational moment, later on in the series. Oh man, Chris Paul, Chris Paul's here, right? And he can still contribute without scoring. He's one of those point guards that he can still make plays. He can still dictate the pace of the game.
But doesn't some of that get hindered when you pretty much completely take away his scoring threat? Because that's what opens up a lot of those passing lanes.
If he's at a point where it's hurting you to have him on the court, if he's a liability, then obviously you don't want to play him as a liability. But I feel like he can still give you something to where you start him, limit his minutes. And in crunch time, you want his decision making and his passing in the game, in those clutch moments, especially because this team is so young and they don't have anybody else.
Right.
So,
and that's where I wouldn't start him. Right. I'd let him be that 6 man off the bench, that vocal leader to Payne there, and then I would give him limited minutes throughout, and then I would put him in all of the fourth quarter if he felt, barring any more re-aggravation to the injury or anything like that. But I'd let him have those little minutes or times of contribution against the second team, right, where he's going to be a lot more effective, where Obviously they're not the starting players who are superior players, mind you, right? So put him in that position, and then you put him in all of the fourth quarter where he's going to have a little bit fresher legs. But yeah, I think having him on that bench, being that vocal leader, pushing Payne to make the right moves, do this, do that, whatever the case. I think he'd be a little bit more effective that route moving forward. And I think a part of him has to and I'm not saying that Chris Paul is an egotistical guy or anything, but I think part of him has to kind of like swallow his pride. And because I mean, even when he came back out game one, it's not like he came out and dropped 50 points to lead him to the game one win, on with one arm or whatever. Like he helped, he contributed, but I think he has to kind of realize that, hey, maybe I'm not going to be the superstar guy that, carries a team on my back to greatness. Maybe I can push my team to that, but from a different role,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. It's tough. I guess I tend to agree with Amar. Is like, if he's good enough to play, you play him, but you definitely watch his minutes. The whole like starting him and then waiting till the fourth quarter is tricky, because it's like, as Austin, like when you're like hurt and you cool down, it's hard to get warmed back up.
Right.
Hurt. You know what I mean? It's not like normal where you're just like, all right, I'm good to go. You can't just jump on the bike and you're like good to go. It's like he's older too. He's not a young player anymore.
Right.
So stretching out that shoulder, warming up that shoulder probably is a whole process. It's probably a process him warming up just normally for a game at this point in his career. But like when you're injured, it's like everything is like compounded. You know what I mean? So it's tough to say like, oh, just throw him in at the fourth quarter. You know what I mean? And I think Reggie Miller touched on this. It's like his shoulder is probably like really stiffening up. And now he's got to fly to LA. It's not a long flight or anything, but traveling when you're injured really sucks too. Mm-hmm. I've had to do it. It's awful.
Oh, and you could see last game too, the shoulder was stiffening up. I mean, he was moving it. He was working it, whenever there was a free throw shot. I mean, he was doing that's almost why I think that you bring him off the bench. I mean, obviously he's going to go through his routine, his process or whatever. But I think if you start him in that situation, then I mean, your typical rotations is that player is going to play either all of the first quarter or at least a good 2/3 of it before your second team comes in and then plays most of the end of the first, most of the second. Bring your first team back in for a little bit towards the end of the second to have a strong finish or whatever. So, like, how do you work that and watch Chris Paul's minutes? Because you're right, with the way that his shoulder is, like, you have to be able to get him in there at the perfect time when he's loose, right? Because then the problem is, as you well know with injuries, is that, like, not enough activity, right, can stiffen it and cause it to hurt and sore. And then, like, also too much activity it's just such like a perfect balance. So it's really going to be interesting to see how they coach around that, to be perfectly honest.
And for what it's worth, and then I don't even know if they have the same people as they did back then, but Phoenix at one point kind of recently was renowned for having like the best training staff in the league. This was like during like the Steve Nash era. I mean, you remember all those games where Steve Nash's back was messed up and they were working on him, throughout the whole game just to get him, to still be there for the fourth quarter. But like Grant Hill, I recall, like credited Phoenix's training staff with like prolonging his career. He played with the Suns late in his career, and he was like, they kept me like upright, and their
See, but that's something that was kind of weird.
Right. So I'm just saying, like, Chris Paul's like, if they got those same people there, then he's in the best hands he can be in.
But if you watched in game 2, whenever they showed him on the bench, he was just sitting there. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like you saw a team of guys around him, like working his shoulder and hitting him with the little buffer thing.
Like a NASCAR pit crew.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's what you see in a lot of these situations, right?
But right now, like between games 2 and 3, he's getting world-class care.
Right. I'm just wondering, like, why weren't they there during the game to maybe keep him playing? You know what I mean?
They might have been. Like, the cameras don't show you every moment of Chris, but someone keep a picture of Chris Paul for the entirety of his time on the bench. So, and like, that's a good point, Amar. I didn't even think about that because Nash did have back problems, and I'm not saying this is why his career ended after he left, because he was older and everything. What you saw when he went to LA is like he just seemed like he kind of fell off a cliff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he wasn't the same anymore. And I was a huge Steve Nash fan
Oh yeah.
when he was in Phoenix. Couldn't quite root for him at the Lakers because it's hard for me to root for the Lakers. I have no ties to the Lakers. So it's kind of like rooting for like, the Dallas Cowboys or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, and then even in this series, because I used to really love the Phoenix Suns, it used to be my favorite team when Steve Nash and Amari Stoudemire and Sean Marion and Joe Johnson, ISO Joe, all those players were there. You know what I mean? And so it's like, I really want them to win this series, but I cannot in good conscience pick them right now, especially with Chris. It'd be hard enough with a healthy Chris Paul, because like, you got to give it up to LeBron James. You got to give it up to Anthony Davis. Like those are two top 5 to top 10 players in the NBA without question, without argument. Even if you're a hater, you know what I mean? There's no way you're saying LeBron is outside the top 10 or Anthony Davis is outside the top 10 in NBA players. Like that is a tall ask, and the Suns team is very, very young outside of Chris Paul. They don't have and like Jay Crowder, as you said, he's got some playoff experience, but they don't have a ton of playoff experience. So it's going to be tough, I guess, as far as like my prediction. Assuming Chris Paul doesn't get any better, right? Assuming in 2 days he's not just miracle like robot arm,
right?
Like Jax from Mortal Kombat, like it takes what you got and it quadruples the muscle capacity type thing. There's an old reference for you there from a really terrible movie. I apologize, ladies and gentlemen, for my Mortal Kombat Annihilation reference. But assuming he doesn't just magically healed, I got the Lakers in 6 at the most, probably. I think it's going to be tough, man. It's really going to be tough. So,
yeah. Especially because you got to figure Drummond is starting to get back into. I mean, he's starting to kind of finding his way there.
I like how nobody's mentioned Andre Drummond yet.
Oh yeah, he played great last game. I thought he had a really good game.
Yeah, he's very impactful, but it's hard because he's mainly like a rebound guy. Like he'll get double doubles and everything, but it's like he's like around the hoop. You know what I mean? So it's like I'd say he's probably the third best player though.
Right?
Like
I remember when Kyle Kuzma was supposed to be the other guy in the big 3.
Remember when he was untradeable? They like I can't remember what deal it was, but and we're up against it here, and we're gonna get out of here real quick. But I can't remember what deal it was that they were trying to come up with a package, and they were like, well, we want Kyle Kuzma. And the Lakers were like, no way.
It was for Anthony Davis.
As if it was like prime, like Michael Jordan or something. Like, are you insane?
Yeah, and
no way.
You guys
and the fans were freaking out, dude. There's no way you could get rid of Kuzma. There's no way. He's a 20-point per game guy. How could you?
Do you remember the Kyle Kuzma versus Jason Tatum debate?
Oh, yeah.
It was like, which one's better? And they're going to be like, this is like the bird-worthy.
That's why I'm like, dude, he's a mid-level role player guy at best who's just on a really bad team where he's forced into the spotlight. Like anybody that's in the NBA that's a mid-level role player guy, anybody, take literally any of them and put them on a really, really bad team where they're forced into the spotlight to take the shots and they get the minutes necessary, they're going to score 20 points per game in this generation's NBA. Like there's a single guy who wouldn't do that.
Green, but yeah.
I don't know if I agree with that take, but as far as like when he was getting more minutes and like more of a focal point, he was a really good scorer. But the thing is, that's pretty much all he does.
Right.
He scores. Hehe doesn't, he's
okay,
like,
I'll fix that. Take any scorer and put them in that position, and they're going to score 20 points.
You're not just going to put me in the NBA and give me like 40 minutes of the game and suddenly
That's
I'm
why
dropping
I said
20.
mid-level role player NBA. Like they're professional athletes. Is my point. They made it to the league. So if they're a scorer, if that's their game, and you give them the minutes and touches, they're going to score the points.
Yeah, you mean like Jordan Clarkson, Andrew Wiggins, like somebody like that. Yeah,
Rodney Hood has had a 20-point per game season.
No, I can agree with that. Yeah, you take a scorer and you make him the number 1 or the number 2 guy on a team, and he can get you 20.
Right.
Like that's.
And I think a lot of Lakers fans like saw him dropping 20 points a game and kind of fell in love with that. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, because they saw that as like, man, put that with LeBron James and they're unstoppable kind of thing. But like he was never Like his ceiling was never to be that guy. It was never to even be a starter.
And
Because of exactly what you said, Dylan, especially in today's league, if you want to even be a starter and you're going to be a scorer, you need to at the very least be a 3-and-D guy. And Kuzma is none of that, dude. All he can do is score. Every once in a while, you'll see him put a little heart into some of the hustle stats, but he's just not like he's not a guy that can make that kind of impact.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, especially when a player's young like that, I think people just assume they're going to get way better.
Right.
You know what I mean? And sometimes that's just like your ceiling. It's like a 20 points per game guy. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like we were talking about Andrew Wiggins. Like I'm a big Warriors fan. Like I covered the team for one of my classes this year. So I saw a lot of Andrew Wiggins. And like he'll get you 20 points per game. And you're like, all right, Andrew, like, what about some rebounds? He's like, well, I'll get you 20 points per game, brother.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that's pretty much what he's going to do.
Maybe dish a few assists, if you could throw a couple steals in there. But I'll get 20 points per game. That's what you needed. That's
and there's nothing wrong with that. There's a place for that in today's NBA, especially because in terms of like which stats are important, it takes points to win. You know what I mean? Like no one's ever won a game just by rebounding.
But at the same time, those guys are not untradeable. Have never,
absolutely.
Will never.
They are not untradeable. As is key, as is obvious, because Andrew Wiggins was not drafted by the Warriors. He was traded to the Warriors.
Right.
So he was obviously not untradeable. But anyway, so if there's no final thoughts from Amar or Austin, we are up against it. You guys got any last words you want to do, Amar?
Nothing's jumping out at me. I mean, it's kind of funny. Like we haven't even really had to talk about the Brooklyn Nets because they're just rolling along, and they're the one team doing what everyone expected them to do. I think they're just taking care of business like we all thought. I actually thought Boston would make the series a little more interesting than they have, but it just looks like okay, Brooklyn's going to roll through them, and just like what's next? Like, can they be stopped? We'll see. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think at this point we're going to see a Nets Lakers finals. I'm here for it. I think it'll be fun, enjoyable, and it'll be a really, really tough game. So, but other than that, it was a blast tonight, boys.
Yeah. I definitely like the Nets coming out of the East. I don't know about the Lakers coming out of the West. I definitely got them beating the Suns, but the Lakers don't look invincible in the least. They don't look like a team that can't be stopped out of the West.
Somebody's got to look this up with Miami. NBA finalists kept pretty much their same core that got swept out of the first round the next year.
Like if it's ever happened before?
Right. Has never happened before. Because it might happen in Miami.
I don't know. We'll get the producers on that. But in the meantime, Austin, you want to get us out of here, buddy?
Absolutely. If you are watching this portion of the video, you are a triple OG. That means you have watched all of the content. We love and appreciate you. If you haven't already, hit like, hit subscribe, drop a comment, join the conversation. We will be back at you again next week, probably with some more NBA playoffs because that's what's hot right now. We got a little bit of baseball, some stuff happening in baseball, which we probably won't talk about because we're all Mariners fans anyways. So anyways, thank you guys so much for being here tonight. Thank everybody for tuning in. And again, have a good night. Peace.